Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. My name is Vanya, the channel's RC Alley, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to get faster in your RC racing. Let's get started. So the very first tip I'm going to give you is to make sure you have proper equipment. And what I mean by this is, when you build your cars or buy them used, doesn't matter what you do, go over it. If you buy it used, make sure it's all built correctly. If you're building it yourself, make sure you're following the manual instructions to the T. And then if you're not, you will have issues. If one camber link's half an inch longer than the other one, obviously the car won't be right. And then maintenance in between race days is really important. So basically cleaning the car up, making sure you don't have any broken plastic, replacing slopped out plastic, making sure your diffs and shocks are properly filled, and things like that. So after you do all that, you make sure nothing's binding, everything's moving and spinning freely. Then it is time to move on to check your electronics, and this is where having the proper equipment really comes into play. A lot of people try to cheap out with their electronics. They see a servo or an ESC on eBay for super cheap. They end up getting it and it doesn't work that well. They end up getting a good brand down the road anyway. So having a proper equipment, proper electronics from reputable manufacturers really helps. Moving on to tip number 2, and that is having the right tires. Which tires are the most important thing on the car, so if they're not working right, your car will not be working right. So what does this really mean? In 10 scale, as many of you know, the tire prep is insane. The things you have to do to get your tires to feel right for a track is just crazy. But it has to be done if you want to be competitive. So that means making sure your foams in the tires are not too stiff or too soft. They gotta be just right. Burning your tires in, saucing them properly, and all that. And in 8 scale, just being on the right tread pattern. So, if most of the fast guys are running small pins and you're running tall pins, maybe you should consider trying small pins just to see what it's like, and maybe you'll like it better. So having the right tires is the most important thing. Your car can be set up okay, but if you have great tires, it'll feel good. And you can have a great setup car with really bad tires and it'll feel bad. So tires, very important. Make sure you're getting your tires all the way right for the conditions you're running in, and I promise you will do better. So my third tip for you is just basically track time. The more time you spend in the track, the better you will get. Practice nights are really good for kind of learning to drive in less than ideal conditions. Grip will be a little lower most practice days at tracks than they are on race days. And that's a great time to work on your setup. Talk to people, learn something new, ask questions. Everybody's a little bit more relaxed since there isn't that intensity of racing. But I want you guys to know that the best practice for racing is actually racing. So if you spend, a lot of days at the track practicing and you never race, you show up to your first race and you don't do as well as you do in practice. Well, you gotta practice racing. You gotta calm the nerves. You gotta learn to drive with other people on the track. You gotta learn to be clean. It's just a whole different animal. And then practice what you want to be good at. If you're struggling in one section of the track, work on that. Try to get faster, carry more speed, whatever needs to be done. And then attending regularly. And I'm not talking you have to be there like 3-4 times a week, but going to the track several times a month, maybe 4, 5, 6, it doesn't matter. It just helps you stay on form. It's more fresh in your brain since the last time you did it, versus if you take a month break, you probably forgot everything you learned the last time you were at the track. Alright, and the fourth tip I have for you is actually unplugging your transponder if your track basically has a lap counter on during practice, and every time you do a lap it announces the time you got. Well, I recommend you unplug that during practice. And why? Because you're always chasing hot laps instead of working on your consistency. And there are a ton of people out there who can lay down a blistering fast lap but cannot do it over and over, and that's what separates basically an average racer from a pro. Like a Dakota Fence, Spencer Rivkin, people like that. They can do that hot lap over and over and over again in a race. So basically, just unplug your transponder and run until your pack dies, or however long you usually run. And don't concentrate on your lap times, just concentrate on getting around the track without crashing. That is one of my favorite things to do at the track, because it's just so fun to drive without pressure of having to be super fast. And the speed comes as you slowly get around the track. You just start getting faster and faster, and you feel it, and your lines are getting cleaner. And then when it's time to do an 8-minute main in 10 scale or 10-minute main in electric 8 scale, doesn't matter. You have the ability to do decently quick laps over and over. If you do if let's say the fastest lap at your track is 20 seconds, you do a 20-second lap and rest of them are 23, 24, then the guy who is doing 21s or 2s consistently will finish in front of you. So consistency is really important, and a really easy way to work on it is just unplug the transponder if your track is counting lap times. Alright, the fifth and last tip I have for you is just to have fun. This is a hobby for most of us after all, so if you're not enjoying it, what's the point? I bet 99.9% of us are not getting any sorts of sponsorship deals, or even close to, getting like travel pay or even being paid to drive. So this is just a hobby for us. And yes, it's great to want to be fast and to improve yourself, but remember, have fun, relax, talk to people, ask questions, make friends. Alright guys, that's it for me today. Hopefully you've enjoyed these 5 tips. Hopefully you've learned a little something. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.